I recently watched the movie Conclave, and it was it's very hot these days. After the death of the Pope, and they are going to hold the actual conclave pretty soon. So it was a very timely movie, and it was an interesting movie, not just from a life coach's perspective. I know I usually review movies from a life coach's perspective, but also I was raised Catholic, and now I'm a Buddhist. But although I'm not that religious, so from a Buddhist perspective, watching Conclave was also fairly interesting. So this is sort of my review for Conclave. What I noticed the most in the film is how all the cardinals come, and you can see them engaging in many of the world's vices, so to speak. Number one, smoking. Number two, a lot of drinking, and also a lot of general backstabbing and chitter chatter about basically talking smack about other cardinals, right? And this, of course, like it is a political thing to vote and rallying support and things like that. So in terms of that, like trying to win more political influence, I think is part of the game, so to speak. But um, generally, like there are lots of discussions of that guy fucking sucks, right? So I think uh, to see a lot of cardinals engage in that kind of behavior was very interesting because we typically think of religious figures as having these really high, standards of, codes of conduct, right? But the thing is, this isn't really like I'm sure there are some aspects of the movie that are dramatized and it's exaggerated for the purposes of a movie and storytelling. But I know that in Korea, because Buddhism is kind of big in Korea, I know that there are monks who are corrupt. I know that there are monks who engage in a lot of the, societal things instead of, following the way of the monk, which is like renouncing society, right? And I was thinking a lot about why that is, right? And the conclusion that I sort of arrived at, based on my experience with religious leaders who are more secular versus keeping true to the spirit of the religion, is that I think when a religion becomes organized, right, and when there's a lot of mass, there needs to be some kind of a structure to govern the mass. And when that happens, regardless of how much you don't want it, there has to be some kind of power hierarchy. And whenever there's a power hierarchy, it is the human nature to flock to it. And so I think it's primarily a size kind of an issue. But the thing is, Buddha had lots of students and disciples and followers, but in the time of the Buddha, this wasn't really a problem. Of course, there are some times where it was slightly looking to be problematic because Buddha's one of Buddha's relatives, excuse me, thank you. One of Buddha's relatives also became a monk after the Buddha. His name is Devadatta, and he got fairly um, deep into this idea that Buddha's getting old, and there's a lot of people following, and it's probably me who's going to be the next kind of leader of this organization. So he started investing himself into this idea without really consulting anybody, right? So one day he was deep into this kind of a thought, and he's offered to the Buddha, right? Hey, Buddha, getting old, and like there's a lot of people following you, so maybe it's time you retire, just kind of chill, relax, and enjoy life, and I'll take on the leadership of this organization. And Buddha said no such thing is needed. I don't consider myself a leader, and I am not doing anything intentional to keep this kind of an organization, so to speak. So I am just a man who is following the code of the conduct of monk, and I am just living a very clean life. And all these other people are choosing to do so at their volition. They are choosing to spend their time with me, and it's not that I am trying to lead this group of people into a religious kind of a organization. And because of that, the guy got pissed and is like he tried to assassinate Buddha like 3 times, right? So kind of a dramatic story. But the thing is, when even when there were a lot of people, there needs Buddha had a system of governing it, so to speak, by not governing it, by making sure that everybody understands that this is not an organization. This is something that you are doing voluntarily. Therefore, um, it governed this way, you can have a lot of followers and it won't have that kind of a political problem. So this also is how my current Korean Buddhist order, joined together society or 정토회, operates, right? We have a leader, but the thing is, the leader is not like in some kind of a special seat or anything. It's just that everybody else is on a. It's a very horizontal kind of a structure, with different roles assigned to individuals, and the roles rotate. And because this organization is 100% purely driven by volunteering, nobody gets paid for labor. That means, yeah, in this big organization, you can have a lot of power assigned to you by role, but the thing is, you don't get paid. Therefore, if you are gonna get a powerful role, you're gonna work so hard for it. And you know, I wake up at 5 and do 108 bows and do all that stuff, right? The people in the more or less informally leadership positions at my Buddhist order, they've been living this kind of a life for like 30-40 years, and their dedication to living in this style is just unmatched. And that kind of governance around large organization is, I think, what keeps the a religious group very pure to the intentions. So, I mean, I guess this is a spoiler, but like in the movie too, right? Money becomes a big problem. One of the cardinals get ousted because why? He bought political influence, which is a massive no-no, right? We kind of take care of that. We prevent that from happening in our order because we don't deal with paying anybody at all. So all the accounting is very very clean, and we're all driven by donations anyway. So because we don't do any profit generating things, we're free from these problems. And there were many attempts to from external influences to make our Buddhist order operate in a more capitalistic way, but our the leader of our organization has declined every time, and that's how we are keeping it sort of pure. So in terms of these very supposedly holy people participating in everyday vice, I think it kind of makes you realize that in the end it's all human beings anyway, and therefore we have to be thinking a lot about, if even if we are walking down the holy path, right? How devoted are we to the path to actually deal with the human tendencies that are gonna come up all the time? It's not like this, okay, whew, I got christened, and therefore I'm never gonna have humanly desires ever again. It doesn't work like that, right? Oh, I became a minister. Therefore, now I'm immune to all the human problems. Again, it's not like that. Oh, I'm a cardinal. Therefore, I am immune to all of the world's problems. It's not like that, right? So even if you're a pope, you will still have temptations. You will still have all of your earthly human kind of experiences. And when you are participating in a religion, when you are participating in a kind of a spiritual path, it's important that you have a way to deal with those very natural humankind of tendencies and temptations. So those are the things that really stood out to me, and I think the acting is just so immaculate, and the main protagonist, Lawrence, I just felt so bad for the guy because it was so evident that he wanted nothing to do with the drama. He just wanted to do his job. But it's also a good illustration of the Buddhist point that when you observe your heart, the primary thing that you will find about it is that it is not constant. It is not permanent. So Lawrence is initially like, "Oh, please, I I don't even know why I got involved into this. I submitted my resignation to the Pope, and I'm only into this because he said no." So he goes from this to actually doing a lot of risque things because he has a calling to his job, right? But which is weird because he said his doubts are not about the faith but about the church and about prayer. But he's at first he was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this," and then now he's very devoted to the job to do a lot of groundbreaking things. And later down the line, he also picks a pope name for himself too, right? Which is something that you can't really imagine in the first act of the film. So, and then near the end, he finds himself in conflict again. It's like, oh my god, this big news, and then, but eventually he finds peace because there's always a way to contextualize and recontextualize the situation you're in and the feelings that you have about that situation. So, overall, the I think it's a great movie about observing the human condition, even in a very deeply religious context, and how to, how what happens when you observe someone, when you observe the heart over time. How does it change? The qualities of change were very interesting to notice, and I think the final message is also very Buddhist, and which is also Christian slash Catholic as well. Nobody who says we need to go to war is like a person who is actually experiencing war, because once you experience the senselessness of war, we can't really be calling into more strife. So, there are people who fight competitively, right? UFC fighters and things like that. But they do it for sport. And even inside of that sport, how much mental health stress they go to in order to prepare and fight someone inside of the ring, even though it's a sport, it's a fight, right? The mental toll on that is just significantly great. Any kind of a hostility, any kind of strife, any kind of dislike, disdain, anger you hold for another person, it's a poison that you use to poison yourself. You are the one hurting from it. And like the final pope says, the war that we have to fight is not out there. The war we have to fight is in here. I think that is just a very good timeless message for all the religions and all of humanity, which means, you know, in prayer, if you are a Christian, if you in the God, in Allah, if you're a Muslim, in ourselves, in our own Buddhahood, we must look and we must connect and we must live life according to what we actually are, images of the divine, children of the God, and our innate Buddha. So I think uh, overall, it was just a, even if you're not religious, even if you don't think about these things, I think the movie was a really entertaining movie to watch in these times. Cinematography and the music, acting, lighting, everything was very superb. I enjoyed the movie very much. All right, well, that's my review of the Conclave.